As private butler to King Charles and Princes William and Harry, Grant Harrold gained privileged insight into the character and relationships within the royal family. And to help us to understand how they're coping with the recent developments, he's joining me now. Grant, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
You know, I guess for our global viewers, we want to get some kind of perspective on the duties that were required of you in your role as a royal butler, so we can get some understanding on your perspective on what's been happening. What specifically did you do with the royals?
Well, as a butler, you're a sort of personal assistant. You're there every day. You're around them. We spend a lot of time with them. You're there to obviously look after them. Of course, traditional butler duties, which is the meals and the beverages. But it's much, much, much more than that. It is almost as a personal assistant. You're there kind of run errands, help with daily tasks, assist them with different duties. And I mean, I used to get involved in all sorts, from medal presentations to garden with the now king. You know, so there's not, the job spec was never as straightforward as being a butler. And of course, you built a very close relationship with, I was lucky enough to build a close relationship with the king, the now queen, and very much with Prince William and Princess Catherine. I spent a lot of time with them as well. So I think that's why whenever there's any sad news or anything, it's, even though I've been gone for 11 years and I have been lucky enough still to see them in recent years, they are like a family when you work for them, and that relationship kind of always, I suppose, stays. They always remember who you are, and I have seen them, as I said, since, and it saddens me with all the, just so much sadness since the Queen passed, and then with the King's cancer diagnosis now, this is Catherine's. That, you know, it's just been really, it's just very sad.
Well, it's interesting, as you point out, butler is probably a traditional term, but you're in the inner circle. So I'm wondering how, with your intimate knowledge of the King and the princes, how they might be handling what's going on right now, and perhaps even the need to rest and leave public duties to other members of the royal family.
I think it's very difficult for the King because he's somebody that doesn't like to not kind of get on with duties. You know, he's very much somebody that likes to kind of get on with things, and he's a real, you know, he's a real hard worker. And members of the family, I think I've said recently that he's kind of struggling from the point of view that he wants just to be able to get on and do stuff. And I can imagine he's so frustrated because he works so hard, and I've witnessed that. I've seen how early he starts. I've seen how late, you know, he's up before me working. I was in bed before he'd finished, and this is somebody that's now having to apparently take a rest. Well, I find that very hard to believe, knowing the man he is, that he will take a rest. But I'm sure he's been advised by his doctors that he has to. The same with Catherine. You know, she's also got this drive that, you know, to kind of get on with the duty and to do what's expected of her, and to suddenly stop it all. It's so difficult. I really, I do feel for them because they put everything into their work.
And you would have seen in your time with them how, you know, the media worked and the speculation, the tabloid speculation about what happened with them. What went through your head when you were seeing everything speculating about what happened to Princess Catherine?
Do you know, it's difficult. Part of me thought it's a real invasion of privacy, but the other part of me thought this is it's a real difficult one because it's not just the media. The public, I know this because I was getting phone calls from friends and family. The public want to know not what's exactly happened to her. They just want to know she's going to be okay and that everything was safe, and you know that she would make a return back to public duties. And all the theories, there were so many different conspiracy theories all going around. None of them obviously was spot on. They were, you know, everything else but. And of course, since the announcement, from what I understand and what I'm reading, is that obviously a lot of these theories have quite rightly disappeared, or people have suddenly kind of trying to come up with, you know, reasons why they had these theories. But I just think it's a shame that they can't just be, you know. And the other thing that really saddened me was people were saying, I had people say that they pay for them because, and which is technically true, you know, the British taxpayer pays for them to be there, but it doesn't give you ownership. I think this is the extraordinary thing. I think people feel that when they pay for the services, not in a weird way, it's almost like when you go and you go to a restaurant, you see the same thing happen. I think when you pay for something, you almost feel you have an ownership. And I think with the royals, it's the same thing. People feel that they have an ownership of them. And they're human beings. You know, at the end of the day, they're a family, like you and me. They hurt, they cry, they laugh. And when they do go through difficult times, of course they want to keep it private, especially when they're trying to work out, they've got to deal with it and process it themselves, let alone tell not just their friends and family, but the world, you know, so it's not something they can take lightly.
What went through your head when the video message came out from Princess Catherine then?
I find it really emotional. I was watching it. I watched it live as it happened, and I find it very emotional because this is somebody. She's a very when I knew her, and I'm talking about again about 11 years ago. She was a very sweet. Can I say girl? I knew her from early 20s. Always so polite, sweet, kind. She's got this young family, and here she is now having one of the biggest battles of her life. And I'd be lying if I say to you it didn't upset me. I find it very moving because I just really felt for her. And I also felt for William because William's not been himself. I've been watching and I could see he's just not acting quite right, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And of course, journalists have picked up on it and people have picked up on it, but I agreed something was wrong. And the things going through their heads, I don't even want to imagine, because obviously it's a bit upsetting, and you've got to think of the good outcomes, and you've also got to think of the bad outcomes, and
Yeah.
that's just really sad because
And
you think somebody like her with a young family shouldn't be going through this.
And of course, we've seen so much turbulence in recent times with the royal family. It goes through its ups and downs, but social media changes the dynamic quite dramatically. And we saw what happened with Prince Harry kind of breaking away. Do you think that Harry will be expected to put aside any differences and recall to support the
Oh,
family?
yes. Absolutely. I don't think it will even be a case of being asked. I think he will. Knowing the Harry that I know, he adores Kate. I don't care what anyone says, and I know of course, things have gone not quite to plan in that space. However, I know he adores Kate. I know he adores William, and I heart and heart honestly believe that he will be in communication with him, which is what I've always said, despite what's been going on. And absolutely, I honestly believe he will. He will say, I know he'll be saying to them, "What can I do to support?" And it's the same as his father. Harry's in a real difficult situation with everything that's happened and now what's going on. And I'm sure, the Harry that I knew is very much still there and will be wanting to know what he can do to help. And I also think possibly even Meghan, I'm sure will be hopefully be supporting him and saying the same.
Grant, to what extent could this be the moment of reconciliation for the princes?
I'd like to think this is with a chance for reconciliation, for fixing this, because it's sad, isn't it? It's when things like this go wrong, when I say wrong, this is life, isn't it? But when things like this happen, to any family, I should also point out, because how many other millions of people around the world have gone through the same devastating news, and I think this will certainly bring them. I would like to think it'll bring them closer, and I think it'll bring them closer again.
Yeah, I want to quote you. You said, "The fact Kate and the King have discussed this so openly is unprecedented. I know from my time there that these matters were extremely private and only dealt with behind closed doors." So, thinking about that quote, it seems that things are being handled very differently now by the royal family compared with the
Totally.
past. Yeah. So, what degree do you think
Totally.
this is the case? Yeah, I was going to ask what's kind of forced this transformation?
I think quite simply, the prince or the king now has always been a very modern thinker, and I think he's aware that with his late mother and father, there was a lot of secrecy about what was going on with their health, and I think maybe he found it difficult because he was having to, the rest of our family kind of try to keep things private, and maybe he feels that rather than have this added pressure of privacy, which is the British thing, isn't it? Stiff upper lip. We don't talk about health. We just got on with it. And that was his parents and his grandparents and his great grandparents' generation, but it's not his generation. And I think he actually feels that what's better is to talk about it, get people talking about it, get people getting checked and making sure they're okay. So to prevent other people from hopefully, if they have got the disease or diseases, it gives them a chance to fight it. And I think that's what the King's trying to say to people is get checked and don't, this is why it's good to talk about it. And Catherine is now doing the exact same, possibly at the time. Can you imagine the effect if she had come out and said at the exact same time as the King? It would have been, people would just not be able to get their heads around it. And maybe they felt that to do it this way and allow her to recover from the surgery was the most sensible way to do it. But it just shows you that they are thinking very, very differently to how the late Queen and previous monarchs thought. So this is obviously how this monarchy is now going to function. Is a lot more, still, of course, they're going to have privacy, but possibly a lot more open
They've,
about
yeah,
things when it comes
traditionally
to
they
health.
have kind of stood back and not commented on things. It's been the kind of, you know, the barrier. To what degree do you think now they will have to, especially with social media being so powerful and totally speculative, to what degree would they have to actually start really having a department that manages their kind of situation in the world of social media and the general media too?
I could almost guarantee they've already got that department, and if not, they'll be hiring pretty soon for that. If not already, I think I read somewhere they have started looking into that, which doesn't surprise me because social media is a big part of what they do. Isn't it interesting? I've noticed that they've been releasing information via social media as well as the traditional methods that they do, and this is just their new way of doing things. That's why you've got Catherine doing this video message. We'd never had a video message in the past. It would have been if anything, it would have been a statement. But the fact she's done a video message, it's because she knows it's going to be shared around the world to billions of people via how we're doing this exactly the same way. And it's become a very powerful tool, and it's a good way of getting messages, both positive and negative, across. So that's why they're utilizing it. And I think this is definitely a sign of things to come when it comes to raw news, both good and bad. This is how they're going to be doing it.
And to what degree, Grant, do you think that this kind of marks a new era in the way the royal family deals with the public, and how perhaps the public might change their view of the royals?
I think this is very important for them because this relationship with the public is important. We've seen, I'm sure you'll agree with, in the past, we've seen when Princess Diana passed away, when she died, obviously that had there was a lot of anger and upset back then, and we didn't even really have social media. We didn't have social media back then, and I think it's been said that we could have potentially lost our monarchy then. So they're aware that it doesn't take much to change public opinion. At the moment, the public are supportive, and of course they love our royal family. But at the same time, look at how a lot of people are upset with Harry. A lot of people are upset with Prince Andrew. It's very easy to change that tide, and they're aware of that, which is why I think it's important for them to convey and to get things across and to be open and transparent as possible. I think this is very important for the monarchy. The monarchy, historically, transparency and that kind of thing was never what they did. They didn't need to. As the Queen used to say it, never explain, never complain. That was her motto.
Right.
And but now it's the complete opposite. It is let's explain, let's complain. I mean, we've got so many royals kind of voicing when they're upset, and I think this is important because rather than not discuss things, the public want them discussing things, and I think it'll make the public admire and respect them and feel more connected to them as well.
Well, Grant, thank you so much for your inside view of the royal family and your perspective on what's been happening now. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Thank you.